Titles podcast is brought to you by Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. This is Steve Kaempf with the People, Not Titles podcast, and I'm so happy to be here with my cohort and colleague into 2025, Matt Lombardi. Matt, good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. I can't believe it's January 2nd. And
Matt,
here we are.
Yep, here we are. It was just a little while ago that we were storing firearms and bottled water for Y2K, and it's 25 years later, and we're still here.
I remember Y2K vividly, and it was a big non-event.
Yeah, nothing
For you kids
burger.
out there, look it up.
Yeah, look it up. And you know what? And maybe because they made such a big deal out of it, we were so prepared that it became a non-event.
It was a non-event, but if you remember, like you said, airplanes were going to fall from the sky.
All your
computers,
money in the banks were going to be gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
No sewer service was going to work. A lot of books sold on how everything was going to go bad.
It all worked out just fine.
All worked out fine. So, Matt, we're entering into 2025. What is the hot news items? I see we got the NAR is front and center. You know, I was walking down Michigan Avenue, which that's where their office is, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and I walked by their office. I was like, I never realized they have a pretty nice. They have pretty nice digs down there, Matt.
It's a valuable asset
Yeah.
for NAR.
Yeah.
And if you look at the very top, the whole new structure on top was done within the last 5 years.
And is it their building actually?
They own the building.
Wow.
A few affiliates are in there.
So the realtors don't own the building; they do.
The NAR owns it. I don't know how it's structured, but
All right.
that's for another discussion.
So as a realtor, if you're sitting at home saying, I want my piece of the action, you're probably not going to get through.
You're not going to.
All right.
But yeah, so 2024 was a very transitional year in real estate. And we won't talk about lawsuits and other stuff.
No.
But front and center on our list was something that, so the New York Times reporter named Deborah Kamen specifically has written a bunch of articles about and against NAR and what they've done with their
Does she have a vendetta against NAR, do you see, Matt? Do you
She
think?
may have a personal vendetta, but she's also established some really good, credible resources from current, past staff members,
Okay.
as well as current and past leadership people
Okay.
that actually provide her a lot of information. But this first article that we're going to talk about is regarding the American Property Owners Alliance. And if you want to look it up, it's propertyownersalliance.org is the website. But this is 100% fully funded NAR offshoot group. And this article talks about NAR's creating this, how it was created, why it was created. And to summarize some of the things in the article, one of the gentlemen who used to be a senior vice president at NAR, Bill Malkasian, he was sort of instrumental in getting this started.
Okay.
And it was based on something that he did when he ran the Wisconsin Realtors Association, where the NAR funds this. On paper, it's 100% legal and everything's good. And we're going to do a little point counterpoint. So the
Right,
point,
and it sounds good though. American Property Owners Alliance. I mean, who wouldn't want a realtor group to support the Property Owners Alliance? I mean,
Right.
of course.
So look at the website. You can make an assessment for yourself of what it is. But, you know, the article says 5 years ago NAR created this, claiming it to be an advocacy group for property owners. What they also claim is that it's nothing but a shell, not-for-profit, non-profit organization where NAR could put funds in from NAR and then distribute it through this American Property Owners Alliance to other groups. They claim dark money groups, conservative groups, senators, all this stuff. You know, the article also says it's very lack of transparency and oversight. What I'll say is the oversight, there is no oversight. The staff person who's running it on paper is an NAR employee.
And they get told where to funnel the money?
Perhaps, perhaps.
Yeah.
The board of directors are NAR leaders. So on paper, it's fine. The origins I said it was based on something that was done in Wisconsin. The funding is 100% done from NAR. Knowing how it's operated, it's probably like, here's what we're doing. It's a line item moved from the left to the right. And here it is. It's funded. And this Property Owners Alliance is putting their funds to different groups that they feel it's pro-property ownership. I looked at their website over the last couple days, and if you look at it, it's fairly benign. They're not asking for you or anybody else to donate money. It's 100% funded from NAR. It's not asking for you to contribute.
Right, and the NAR is 100% funded from real estate brokerages and their agents.
Correct. So there is this group out there that I didn't even know existed. So this article is very interesting. So the article is negative and saying a lot of things, lack of transparency. Most realtors don't even know this exists. Most realtors don't even know that their dues dollars is going for this. And the counterpoint from NAR.
Yeah, the NAR then came out with a response saying,
Correct.
hey, settle down. Here's
Correct.
the facts.
So NAR has a great PR machine. They have internal PR people, media relations folks. They also engage with outside crisis management PR. I know that for a fact. I don't know who may have crafted this. My hunch is probably all internal. But what NAR says is, going to point by point, that APAO, the acronym for this, is 100% transparent in that it's not shadowy. It was created in 2020 and was publicly announced, which it probably was. But publicly, what do you define as publicly? We put up a website and maybe said, here's something that we did. It may not be to everybody.
And if publicly announced was, hey, we're starting the Property Alliance, advocating for property, this and that, and the good for the realtors, brokers might go, oh, that's great, another great feather. But did they say, and we're funneling money into this, and we're going,
Right.
No, what's publicly announced?
Right. They say that the grant allocation was mischaracterized, that they, claims that, the article claims that 10 million went to conservative groups and that it doesn't adhere to IRS protocols. They're saying that's not true. A lot of our money, in fact, they say 70% went to left-leaning groups. How do you define a right-leaning or left-leaning housing advocacy group? I have no idea. But I'm sure on paper it does adhere 100% to IRS rules. So that I don't think is a question. How it was created, they say that this organization was not created due to one individual's efforts, but came from a working group recommendation, and its creation was overwhelmingly approved by the NAR Board of Directors. My hunch is the working group was probably a handful
Of the board.
of people. They brought it up at the Board of Directors meetings. Who knows how it was presented, but I'm sure it was approved overwhelmingly by the Board of Directors because it had to be. Now, the NAR Board of Directors, if it still holds true, is about 900 to 950 individuals. By the time it gets to the Board of Directors, they are going to approve 95 to 100% of things that come before them. That is not the place and time for questions. Those are done in committees, subcommittees, etc. So when things are introduced, it goes through a vetted process before it hits the Board of Directors. So most people are aware of any issues on the Board of Directors, and they will voice those before the Board of Directors meetings and not during it. Not being part of that, I have no idea. Budget proportionality, the article states that, almost 16 million is to be appropriated for this year. NAR says that it's going to be 6.6 million. The bottom line, as Steve said, it's 100% funded from the Realtor organization, which is mostly funded by Realtor dues. So if you're a Realtor out there and didn't know this existed, ask about it. If you're not comfortable with it, you have a right as a member to question these things and say, is this how my money should be being used? And is this a value to me? What is ultimately the end game here?
Matt, I have an opinion on this.
I would hope you did.
So first off, if we look back at last year, I think realtors and brokerages feel like, in many ways, they were not protected by the NAR with the NAR settlement. And then I would say that they were also not defended well during this period of time, that's how they would feel. And so they're not represented well, they're not defended well. And so what value are the NAR providing. They need to establish that. They need to establish what is the value. That you get to call yourself a realtor? Okay. But then now you have something completely different, which is while you didn't take care of me, I'm finding out that there's a bunch of other things going on with my money
Correct.
that don't impact me. The bottom line is, it's kind of like this idea of, when you put the mask on you and then take care of everyone around you. It's like, take care of your broker. I think people wouldn't care about this if they felt like they were taken care of. If they don't feel like they're taken care of, all of a sudden everything else comes under scrutiny, and I think that's what's going to be happening here. They're not going to get the benefit of the doubt.
And you are 100% right, Stephen, that NAR perception from the membership and publicly has taken a huge hit in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the brokerage community, many of them were left high and dry from the commission lawsuit, the main commission lawsuit. Members are always questioning, what is the value of my membership? Mm-hmm. And I think that is going to be the big defining issue of this year. And it's going to continue. And when we talk about our predictions for 2025, not to get ahead, we will talk about that. But most definitely.
Yeah.
And if we're okay to move on, that's the next thing that NAR is doing. Is this was announced last month by their CEO and current president, Kevin Sears, how NAR is going to emphasize and use dialogue to help craft a member experience strategy. In a nutshell, how I read into this announcement is NAR is going to proactively reach out to brokers and agents through emails, face-to-face, in meetings, interviews, focus groups, to gain insights of what they want, what members want for day-to-day real estate needs. Meaning, what value, and we've talked about this so many times over the last year, of what value does NAR bring? Yes, calling yourself a realtor, brand recognition, all those things is good. Protection in the industry, that's been shot. Mm-hmm. Value and credibility with consumers.
Marketing, to the consumer.
All those things.
Right.
So, and the CEO, her name's Nikia Wright, she's now the full-time CEO, emphasized that this is not about getting new members, it's about asking current members and holding on to those current members.
I think that's beginning in the right spot, Matt.
Correct. And it says the initiative aims to boost the value provided to members rather than grow membership, ensuring realtors can thrive in their day-to-day business. If you look at all the stuff NAR has out there, most members would say, I don't need any of this, a lot of it. Certifications, designations, you can make the argument that I'm a specialty, I want the certification credibility as a accredited buyer's representative or a military specialist. Those are all good things, and I think more education that a practicing agent has, more power to you. It gives you better, knowledge, information to work with your clients, and it also shows that you care about your profession. Those are all good things. But there's so many other things, like you can question the value of having an annual convention. What is the purpose of that when you look at 1.5 million members, and these days I think they get between 10 and 15,000 bodies in there, where a vast majority of them are the board of directors and other leadership that have to be there. So I remember that from years ago. It's like, if you look at the bottom line, it does make money, but is it a value to you as a day-to-day realtor? Probably not. So those are things that NAR needs to redefine. My take is this is a direct response to everything that's transpired over the past 12 months, where more brokers, agents, the membership are questioning, what are you doing for me and why are you doing it for me? And so this is a response from NAR to say, we care about you, we've heard about you, we are going to make changes. So I really want to see what transpires with this, because this was announced last month. My hunch is things will take place this year. So let's see what falls and happens.
Let's see. Matt, this is like a microcosm of government in that
yes,
when everyone is making a good wage, things are affordable, and the economy is good, no one questions all the other BS that you're doing. But all of a sudden, you have your constituency really taking a hit, not being represented. Now that last year they had to justify their commissions over and over and over again to the consumer, and then out leak stuff like we've been, the tickets to Hamilton, these fat cat trips, these high wages that are ridiculous comparison to what realtors are making. And now this, which is just money leaking out left and right to places that nobody has any idea of, not a good look. And so I do believe to really pull the Band-Aid off, they need to uncover it all and then tighten it back up. And probably is going to require some more leadership to hit the road, because you can't have the same foxes watching the hen house.
Correct. And like I said, it's a huge organization with lots of money, a board of directors of 900 to 950. It's tough to make decisions. When
a lot of hands in the pot, Matt.
It's hard to make decisions when there's two or more people. So
so Matt, this leads us right to then the response, which is this could be the first of many dominoes falling, which is Realty One saying, "Hey, we're out of here."
Correct. So Realty One, which is a large national global franchise, I believe they have about 20,000 agents. They're based and headquartered and founded out of Phoenix, Arizona. And so this just came out last month that their Phoenix, Arizona area agents could decide whether or not they want to affiliate and maintain their NAR membership. And the MLS in Phoenix has offered now a new membership grouping for non-realtors. It's meaning you don't have, let me read this. So it's called MLS Choice Program. And it's a lower cost membership program for agents and brokers. If the brokerage opts out, its agents can access MLS and legal forms without joining a realtor association.
So
and
before...
that coincides with something else we talked about with the state of Alabama trying to do the same thing. And I think we will also foresee this happening more this year.
And so before, like you compared the NAR, just hypothetically, to a cartel, where in order to do business, you had to be a part of the mob. And now all of a sudden it's like, no, I can't access my forms, I can't operate. So now the NAR is going to have to shift to value, not have to. It's going to shift to want to. Why should I? And justify your expense. So I think it's a good initiative, and it could force the NAR to become better.
And my take on this is many brokerages have shifted their positions on having to tie membership to the MLS. I'm sure there's many realtors questioning their membership affiliation. Brokerages are questioning their membership affiliation. And so this bifurcation, this splitting of realtors versus non-realtors in the MLS, I think, is a trend that will happen more so. And we'll see what happens this year. But, like Steve said, historically, you have to be a realtor to have membership and access to your local MLS. Now that's going to be something that each MLS is going to look at and say, do we want to be associated like that? Because more and more realtors are questioning their membership. I don't want to be a realtor, but I still want access to the MLS. The MLS makes so much money, and the value they bring to the table is immeasurable. Plus, all the MLSs resell their data to all the aggregators, to the Realtor.coms, the Zillows, Redfins, all of that. So that's where the data comes from that you and consumers are using when they're looking at homes for sale. All the background, taxes paid, when was this last listed, what are the tax rates? All that comes from the MLS.
Excellent. All right, Matt. So U.S. faces a severe housing shortage. Will Trump's proposals help? Will he make housing great again? MAGA.
Well, as president-to-be, former President Trump says, he knows real estate.
Yes.
He knows real estate better than anybody. But seriously, his proposals, and this was an article that I found that's sort of like, hey, here are the things that President Trump is talking about, what he potentially plans to do with the new administration this month. And some of those things may or may not be good for real estate. So first is, one of his first primary proposals is saying, we're going to open up federal lands for development. We're going to, however they structure it. But the reality is most federal lands are not in major urban areas. They're where out.
Like, are they talking about opening up Central Park?
No, Central Park is not federally
Federal.
owned
Okay.
land.
Okay.
But like Yosemite.
Okay.
That's how I define
Okay.
what is a federally owned land.
Yeah.
Obviously, the federal government owns lots of different
State
areas,
parks.
but that's one of them.
Okay.
Will it make a difference if he opens up federal lands because where they're located is not advantageous to where people actually want to live?
Right. There's probably land available around Yosemite, separate
Correct.
from Yosemite.
Correct.
So, anyway, okay.
And the second thing on the table is the tariffs. One of his big proposals is we're going to increase tariffs on anybody doing business with the United States, Mexico, Canada, China. Etc. Now, the flip side of that is you institute tariffs on construction materials, which are, a lot of them are coming from Canada. What happens is, at the end of the day, that costs more than for U.S. construction companies and ultimately U.S. consumers.
So tariffs could drive construction costs up.
Correct. So lumber, construction materials may potentially rise those and would increase the price of new homes built, which will create more affordability issues, which we don't need. And so those are just things to look about. And I'm not going to look into my crystal ball and say, will these happen or will not? I think there will be a tariff adjustment, but maybe not as significant as he's claiming it to be. That's my take. Another thing is the mass deportations of illegal immigrants. So we've talked about this, and those of you watching may know this, but a lot of illegal immigrants are in the construction trades, meaning actually building the houses or in different trades associated with that. So the theory here is if there are these mass deportations, how will that, and it will negatively affect getting qualified people to actually do the home building and all associated trades work with it, the carpentry, electrician, plumbing, all those things. Because there is a shortage in the United States of skilled tradespeople. I know there's always a concerted effort to get younger people in there. I won't get into high schools eliminating trades. How when you were in school there was a shop, I'm sure. You could work on a car, same for me. That does not exist anymore.
No. But to make a one-hitter in metal shop? I never did, but I know people did.
I'm sure they did.
Matt, speaking of mass deportations, I was seeing that, this Homan, who's going to, the new sheriff in town, right? So, that there are 400,000, in Chicagoland, there are 400,000 people that are on the sketchy list. This isn't illegal immigrants. These are illegal, non-legal immigrants that are here that are actually on some type of criminal watch.
Okay.
400,000. So it made me think, boy, if you remove, they're living somewhere right now, right? 400,000 people. Does that make room? That's one question. I understand there's a employment situation, but does that make room for people? I don't know.
For working or for living?
For living.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, does it make room? Are they living in apartment buildings that could be now, utilized for citizens and housing and all this kind of thing?
So yes, that is a potential positive effect if there are these
not saying it's a
deportations,
positive, I'm just saying it could.
It would,
it was a question.
It would impact the affordability issue with rentals and
Yes.
some of these places where it would definitely open up additional housing for people who may not have that opportunity right now, because what you're saying is true. There are many legal immigrants here in the country. They are living somewhere. If they are removed, that opens up space for them. Another thing that this talks about is climate-related risks. Republicans in general, Trump in general, they want to remove regulations, make it easier to do business. Not a bad thing.
Make it easier to build, not so expensive, not so long, not so slow, so they can get built permits and all that fast. Taking too long, too expensive. No one wants to build.
Right.
You have to make sure that the whooping crane is going to be able to survive and nestle its eggs.
Correct. So there's a happy balance between that, but in general, I know that there will be less regulation moving forward. How will that impact things? Could be good for building, but if tariffs are too high, maybe not. Also with climate-related things, if you're building in floodplains, if you're building in tornado alley, if you're building in hurricane-prone areas where you don't need the regulation, those are things to be seen. But just know that there's a lot out there.
Matt, and it reminds me how we've always advocated. Baird and Warner for a long time has been advocating for fair housing. We're champions of fair housing. We're optimistic about Chicago, and we want to be on the right side of the fair housing argument. But I also believe that when American citizens, or those here in our country, who feel good about the economy, they feel good about their economic opportunity, they feel good about their future, their confidence, their ability to afford things, they invest, they build, they grow, they have a hope. So I think that's going to be a big part of it. When people feel like, I don't know if I'm going to have my job, I don't know if this is going to happen, I don't know if that's going to happen, I can't afford this, I can't afford that, they start to shrink backwards, and all that ingenuity and whatever just doesn't spring forward. So
the number one driver of property ownership and home purchases is your job.
There you go.
That drives home ownership and property ownership. Is when
the People Not Titles podcast is proud to be sponsored by Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results.
Is when you exactly what you said, Steve, which is I have a job. I feel good about my job. I feel safe in my job. I'm getting paid a good wage in my job where I could survive and live. I'm going to invest in a home.
There you go.
That is totally 100% correct. So we will see what happens when the new administration comes in. I'm not pro or against any of these things. It's wait and see what happens.
Yeah, let's wait and see.
Because we don't know what's going to happen. And something will happen in the housing market, and I think some of these things will be enacted. I don't know how successful they will be. One thing that I do want to mention is Robert Rifkin, who's the CEO of Compass. He was actually recently on either Fox Business or CNBC, where they were talking about Compass, but they talked with a couple of interview questions about what he foresees with some of these proposals, and he said the federal land, opening up the federal lands is not a bad idea, but he said the time frame is going to take so long.
Yeah. It's not going to impact
like,
any. We're not going
right,
to go, oh my gosh,
right,
it's 2025, we're going to see
right,
an impact.
This will take years to see the positive impact of that. And he also, Compass, I believe, said they were forecasting like 5.5% to 6% mortgage rates for next year. And based on what he's seeing with these potential tariffs and other things, they've revised it to like 6.5% to 7.5%.
Ooh, okay.
So just a side note with that I wanted to share.
Easy Knock shuts down, Matt.
Yeah, this is a little story here, and this caught my eye. Easy Knock was a real estate company that specialized in what's known as sale leasebacks. Not necessarily here in the Midwest, even though I'm sure there were some.
There were some here,
in the
yeah.
South. And so sale leasebacks they're a shady sort of deal where this company will go to a homeowner and say, Steve, I'm going to buy your house, but now you have to agree to lease it back from me. Very shady. Multiple lawsuits against Easy Knock.
So, and I think, forgive me, I believe the scheme is Matt's struggling.
Yeah.
He can't pay his mortgage.
Yeah.
He lost his job. He's fallen behind. And so they go to Matt and they look at it and go, well, there's this much equity in it. I'm going to offer to buy Matt's home, and then I'm going to help him stay in it, charge him exorbitant fees because he doesn't want to move his family and all that. But after the deal is done, Matt sits there and goes, okay, wait a second. I've given up most of my equity. I'm paying way more than I should have because I was afraid to let go of my home because I might have been in a bad situation. Screw this, I'm going to move.
Yep.
Because I don't own it anymore and I'm out of here.
Right.
And it looks to me like the scheme failed and now they're out of business.
Yeah. So for consumers out there, anybody watching, don't do a sales leaseback.
Right.
Do anything
if you're in
else
trouble with your home and you need to catch up or whatever, what it talks about is very few people who did the scheme wound up keeping their home and staying in it. Sometimes you just got to let it go.
Correct.
You know, it's like when in Rocky, when Apollo Creed's guy said, "Let it go."
Let it go.
You gotta let it go.
Let it go. So that's Easy Knock.
All right,
Easy
easy
Knock
knock.
is no more. Now, they do have a portfolio of homes that are still on their books. It's been taken over by another company.
Okay, that could spill into the market.
So who knows what's going to happen with that, but just an FYI on that shutting down.
All right, Matt. U.S. inflation, interest rates, mortgage news.
So the latest on U.S. inflation, and this is November 2024, the consumer price index rose 0.3%, following 0.2% in October. The annual inflation rate is at 2.7%, and that's up from 2.6 in October. Once again, and I'll say this, the Fed's goal is 2%. So this is, for every month this year, it's been well over 2%. So they have not tamped down their preferred inflation rate. The core inflation rate, which does not include food and energy, rose by 0.3 in November. And over the past 12 months, it's risen 3.3%. From an inflationary standpoint, so here's a little side note. Our TV conked out.
Oh,
Had to get a new TV right away.
yeah. You can't go a day without TV,
I
Matt.
did not go a day without a TV. So I wound up buying a 65-inch, decent TV, not the high end, but good enough for us, less than $400.
Unbelievable.
And my son astutely pointed out that, yeah, that's cheap. Both my sons were like, wow, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
However, so like in the tech industry, in the tech field, when you're buying things, it's like, oh, this isn't expensive. Where everybody's feeling it is everywhere else.
Yes.
Energy prices, food, gas.
So they can keep you programmed and your brain sucked into the matrix
Right.
very inexpensively. But for food, shelter,
Correct.
clothing, might be a little bit more.
Correct. Anyway, so interest rates. In December, the Fed, when they last met in December, they reduced their fund rate by 25 percentage points, or 20.25 percentage points, 25 basis points, and it's now in the 4.25 to 4.5% range. And this is the third consecutive cut since September. And I think it's 1% less than when they started. Now, everybody was thinking next, like this year, what's going to happen? How many rate cuts are there going to be? The Fed thinks maybe 2. Others say 4 or 5. Once again, nobody knows. And it's all based on what happens with the economy, with inflation, all that. So, and once again, these interest rate cuts have not translated into lower mortgage rates.
Right. That's
And
the
so-
thing that surprised me, Matt,
And
about
so-
your due diligence.
And so the mortgage rates I pulled for the average for each month of 2024. And so the range, the lowest was 6.27% in January of 24, and the highest was almost 7% in November.
Yeah, Matt, and I remember spring, right? How many rate drops were going to be? A half a point here, a half a point there, here a point, there a point, and we're going to be in the 5s by fall,
Correct.
right? And what I noticed is the mortgage rates did not drop 1 iota until December,
Correct.
when it dropped to 6.85,
Correct.
which was maybe the 5th highest for the year.
Right.
So all this to say, nobody knew where it was going to go, and they probably don't know where it's going to go now.
No. And
But we
what-
can predict.
What I'll say, and we will predict, but yeah, so in 2024, between 6 and 7% interest rate, which I believe will continue to be the new norm,
Okay.
somewhere in that range. Because, the interest rate, mortgage interest rate is not tied on the Fed rate. It's tied on long-term interest rates. And so people want, obviously, lower mortgage rates, but I think people have accepted that this is how it's going to be.
Okay.
So yeah.
Existing home sales, Matt.
So positive notes as we conclude 2024. So for the U.S. in general, housing market is showing signs of recovery. I think Steve and I shared that 2024 was the lowest of the low. Could not get any lower or worse, and there's nowhere to go but up. So we're starting to see some upticks in certain parameters. So existing home sales increased almost 5%, and it's their adjusted, seasonally adjusted rate of existing home sales. It was under 4 million for the entire year. It's now been revised to 4.15 million, which is the fastest pace since March of 24. And this marks a 6% rise year over year in gain and the highest since June of 21.
So November of 23, November of 24 versus November of 23 is the largest year-over-year gain.
Correct.
Okay, so we're seeing things
We're seeing
potentially
things
heat
happening.
up.
Correct. Median home price of existing homes in November was $406,000, which is almost 5% from the same time last year. Total housing inventory was 1.33 million units, which is down 3% from October, but almost 18% higher year over year. So that's good. There's almost a 4-month supply of inventory. We want 6 months of inventory. And pending home sales saw an uptick of just over 2% in November, which is the 4th month in a row that we've seen this. Positive trends suggest that buyers are gradually adjusting to mortgage rates between 6 and 7%. And I did a little research and said, what is NAR predicting for 2025? So here's what Lawrence Yoon and his team are predicting for 2025. They're predicting that existing home sales are going to be up 7 to 12%. New home sales are going to be up 11%. Median home sales price will be 2% higher, and mortgage rates will hover around 6%. John?
Matt, how often is the NAR correct on this?
Great question.
Okay.
And
we'll check that out and we'll have a report back.
That's a great question.
What did they predict for this year? And maybe we could do a little bit of review on that.
Yeah.
Are they full of beans, or is this something that we can rely on?
So what I'll say is Lawrence Yoon has been their longtime chief economist. He's actually pretty good.
Okay.
And he has never been over exuberant, rah, rah, rah. There have been previous chief economists who were that way. But the reality is he's pretty down the middle of here's what the numbers say, here's what we predict.
Well, this squares pretty much with we're at the bottom and there's no place but up. Something I'm thinking about, Matt, is everyone wants their home value to go up, right? But then we're worried about inventory. And one thing I know for sure, when inventory goes up, in other words, there's just a glut of homes available, home values go down.
Correct.
And so it's a tough thing to celebrate your home value going up, which we've seen record highs, and at the same token, kind of be upset about inventory.
Yep.
Inventory is driving the home values, and so if you've owned a home, if you're sitting on the outside looking in, you're like, oh man, I wish I could get in. It's too expensive, not enough, this and that. But if you're a homeowner, you are actually benefiting on the dream that you bought into.
Correct.
Building equity, having a piece of the pie, those kind of things. So just want to counterbalance all these things that everyone worries about. Doesn't need to be your worry necessarily.
Having a home and owning a home is like having a forced savings account.
There you go.
But this savings account, you're living in this investment.
Yep. There's
If
a
you
lot
have
of expenses,
right.
upkeep, repair, blah, blah, blah.
But you're also building equity at some point in time.
Yep.
Even if you lose, it's a forced savings account, in my opinion. So
There you go.
And it's not a bad thing.
And if land is a limited thing, and they don't, people always say, right, they don't make more of it. Guess what? If you own a piece of the land, your value is going up. Everyone's waiting for land to go down in Florida. It's been going up since, who knows? All right, Matt, Chicago metro area stats.
And I'm going to go through this briefly because these are just rough numbers, but positive signs in November, which is the latest data point. So closed sales is up almost 3%. Median sales price up almost 8% year over year. Inventory of homes almost even. Days on market almost even, 26 days versus 24 days. The more inventory, leveling off of certain things. We're in a quiet time right now. I mean, it is a quiet time. And so as the spring market comes on board, I'm eager to see what happens. I think there will be a lot more inventory and sales. Wisconsin Same thing, positive. Wisconsin's been a bright spot in 2024 in terms of real estate. Monthly home sales is up almost 2% year over year. Listings are up 8% year over year. Home price year over year is up almost 11%.
Things are good in Wisconsin if you're a broker, Matt.
Things are good in Wisconsin. So those are good things. And like I said, I don't want to go into the numbers too much, but you get the gist of it, that things are looking better, and I think we bottomed out with a lot of stuff. Now the fun part.
All right, let's go.
So this is our predictions for 2025, and it could be anything you want.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be real estate, but let's focus on real estate.
Let's focus on real estate, Matt. So
You want me to go first?
Yeah, I
Or-
want you to go first.
So I'm going to touch on mortgage rates, which we talked about a little bit earlier in this episode. But I see mortgage rates going to hover between 6 to 6.5% once things level out. Now, depending on what happens with tariffs and craziness in the world, who knows, it may go higher. But I think the Fed will try and keep the rates at a certain point where mortgage rates will hover between 6 and 6.5%, which I think people will accept. People will say, okay, I have accepted this new normal. I am willing to list my house. I am willing to pay this if I'm buying a house. So that's first and foremost. I feel that home insurance rates, not only in certain areas like Florida, but all over the country, are going to continue to increase because we all pay the price as a pool for home insurance. And there was just an article, just as a side note, that I think 30% of homeowners are paying more for their home insurance
And taxes?
and taxes versus what they pay for their mortgage. So that makes it challenging from a affordability perspective when you have to pay so much in insurance. You had said appreciating homes are a good thing. Also, you get taxed more when your home appreciates, as I'm seeing
Absolutely.
right now. Another prediction, Realtor membership. I think a lot of people feel that the Realtor membership is going to fall dramatically. I think in 2025 it's going to fall, but not dramatically. I think they will have between by year end 1.4 to 1.5 million members.
And are you talking about people who are real estate licensed, Matt, or are you talking about NAR membership?
Realtors, people
Okay.
who wrote the check
To
to say,
NAR.
I am a realtor, I'm joining my local, state, and national realtor associations.
Okay.
So I think there will be a decrease, but not as big as many people thought last year. I feel that more MLSs are going to change their membership requirements and open it up where there will be different categories of MLS membership where you don't have to be a quote-unquote NAR member / realtor to be a part of the MLS. So I think that's going to happen. I don't know how fast and how frequent, but that is on the table. I think there's going to be additional commission lawsuits and other lawsuits against MLSs and realtor associations and maybe realtors. I don't know how many, but once those attorneys get a taste of the success of making that money, they are going to find different areas across the country to bring more lawsuits to the table. We bottomed out. I think home sales is going to increase. I don't know how much. Inventories are going to continue to increase. There's going to be a lot more listings coming on the market. People who've built up equity can sell their house and pay cash. That's happened so much more in 2024. And I think there's a huge pent-up demand for people who have accepted the new normal of interest rates, and they will be purchasing these homes. So I think it'll be a win-win overall, but more to see.
Okay.
So those are my high-level predictions for the market.
Matt, I think that I'm kind of falling in line with the NAR in terms of just general. I don't have as specific as you, but I believe that we're going to see about a 10% increase in housing activity, and particularly in Chicagoland. And I know the different markets are different. In the sense of how they, some might do better, some might do worse. So I think that when the economy is doing well, the focus on mortgage rates is not as much as when it isn't doing well.
Right.
And so I believe that mortgage rates will be wherever it takes to get it to be a non-issue.
Yeah.
If people are talking about it too much, they're going to bring it down. But I think that it's been low for so long that I remember back in 2000 or so that getting a 6.5% rate or a 7% rate was exciting, and it was. I think they want to let these mortgage rates stay where they're at, so that people kind of accept it as the new normal, as opposed to driving them down much lower.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. And people need to get over that mental barrier of that rates are not going to 4%. They're not going to low 5%.
So Matt, who do you have in the Super Bowl?
Oh, that's your prediction.
That's it. That's my predictions.
I was just asked this question yesterday. I'm going to stick with it. Kansas City against Detroit.
Wow.
Yep, I think Kansas City, for good or for bad, is going to make it one more time historically and probably win it.
Okay.
Because that's how they roll.
Okay.
They seem to accelerate and just find ways to win in the playoffs.
Okay.
I love Detroit.
All right.
I think Detroit has a great mental mindset. I like their coach. I like the makeup of their team. They got a lot of chips on their shoulders. I think Jared Goff has a huge chip on his shoulders, and he's exceeded and excelled so well.
And you think Kansas City's going to beat Detroit in the finals?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to go Buffalo, Detroit,
Huh?
with Detroit winning the Super Bowl.
I'll take it.
Okay. So, and what about we're in the middle of the college playoffs. Any prediction there? We're pretty deep into it now. We're almost to the semifinals. We're waiting on Notre Dame and Georgia today.
We are, and I'm trying to think who I feel will win it. You know, Penn State, Ohio State killed Oregon yesterday. Penn State killed Boise State. From a Big Ten perspective, you couldn't ask for anything better. Michigan won their bowl game. Illinois won their bowl game. I mean, it's a good roundup for the Big Ten. I don't know.
Is it going to be a Big Ten final?
It could be.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's structured with the final two teams.
So I believe that Ohio State will play Texas, and Notre Dame will play, or Georgia will play Penn State.
Okay.
So it could wind up being. Could we?
I would love to see all Big Ten.
All right. Look, you know what? I want so I'm an Irish fan, so I want the Irish to win the national championship, but Ohio State looked pretty convincing yesterday. They looked pretty hell-bent on winning. So, but right now, it's anyone's ball game.
Yes.
Okay, Matt, what other information do we have?
For you attorneys out there, we're going to have some CLEs coming up. We need to get some accreditation, but be on the lookout for that. We will communicate that. But the first set will be next month.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be exciting.
And then our next podcast,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken, is going to be one of our very own newer salespeople, our account executive, Rosa Castaneda, who has a great interview with Steve where you'll learn a lot about her.
Yep, that
and
should be
her
coming
background.
out within the next day or two.
Yeah,
and then
so
market
be on
trends.
the lookout for that.
Yep.
Anything else on your hit list, sir?
That's it, Matt.
Well, thank you. And as we start the new year, I'm going to say how grateful I am for everybody who tunes in, listens,
Absolutely.
watches us.
Absolutely.
Grateful for our partnership, Steve, in doing this. So hopefully you guys continue and enjoy this and keep coming back.
Yep. Let's have a great 2025 together. Blessings to you.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People Not Titles podcast. We are proudly sponsored by Land Trust Title Services. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and we'd love it if you'd share our podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot.